Right now, somewhere, it's raining. And you're probably fine with that. You've got a blanket, maybe a delivery app, maybe you fall asleep to rain sounds on purpose. Your ancestors heard that exact same sound and it meant something completely different. It meant the fire is dying, there's no food left, and the things that want to eat you are hiding in the same cave you are. This is what 4 days of rain actually did to a human being 50,000 years ago. Stick around, because by the end of this, you'll never hear rain the same way again. Here's the twist. Rain doesn't kill people the dramatic way. It doesn't drown you. It doesn't strike you with lightning. It does something much sneakier. It makes you tired. That's it. That's hypothermia. It doesn't feel like freezing. It feels like wanting to sit down for just a minute. And that minute can be the last one you ever take. Your body starts shutting down once your core temperature drops a few degrees. Ancient humans had no thermometer, no warning system, just a slow, creeping tiredness that either passed or didn't. And here's the part that sounds backwards. Getting wet animal fur on your body was sometimes worse than having nothing at all. Wet fur doesn't insulate, it pulls heat straight out of you. The people who survived weren't the toughest. They were the ones who understood that staying dry mattered more than staying covered. But cold wasn't even the biggest danger. Picture a dry riverbed, empty, safe-looking, a perfect place to sleep out of the wind. Now picture that same riverbed 20 minutes later, full, violent, and moving fast, because it rained hard somewhere upstream you never saw. That's a flash flood. No warning, no time to react. Archaeologists have found human remains buried exactly this way. Not swept away in a dramatic chase, but caught in the dark in a spot that looked completely safe an hour earlier. They didn't find the flood. The flood found them. You'd think finding a dry cave was the hard part. It wasn't. Keeping it was. Caves and rock overhangs weren't empty real estate waiting for humans to move in. Leopards used them. Hyenas used them. Cave bears, bigger than the ones alive today, used them to hibernate. When it rained, every predator in the area wanted the exact same shelter you did. Archaeologists have found sites where a human layer and a large predator layer sit almost on top of each other, sometimes separated by nothing more than a thin line of dirt. Same spot, different tenants, different weeks. So the fire wasn't just for warmth, the fire was the sign on the door. It said, "Taken," which brings us to the real emergency. Forget starting a fire from nothing. That's not the hard part. The hard part is not losing the one you already have. In sustained rain, everything is wet. The tinder's wet. The wood's wet. Even inside a cave, the air gets damp enough to ruin your fire-starting materials. Starting from scratch in dry conditions could take half an hour for a skilled person. In wet conditions, it might not be possible at all. So groups had fire keepers, actual people whose job was to keep the flame alive, no matter what. They layered slow-burning hardwood at the core and quick-catching material on the outside. They built the fire deep inside the shelter, away from wind. They even carried embers between camps, packed in bark or clay, because arriving somewhere new with no fire in the rain could be a death sentence. And if the fire died anyway, someone had to go out, in the rain, and beg a neighboring group for an ember. This wasn't just a favor, it became political. Fire debts, fire alliances. A dead fire could reshape relationships between entire groups. A power outage today is an inconvenience. A dead fire in 50,000 BC, mid-storm, was a full-blown crisis. Here's what almost nobody tells you about this. They weren't sitting around miserable, waiting for the rain to stop. Boredom is a modern invention. It only exists once survival is automated for you. When it isn't, there's no such thing as empty time. There's just time, and it's always full of something. So while it rained, they worked. They knapped stone tools, a process so precise that one wrong strike ruins the whole piece. Archaeologists find huge piles of flint debris at shelter sites, evidence of long napping sessions that only happen when people are stuck inside for days. They made rope, actual cordage from twisted plant fiber, dating back at least 19,000 years at a site in Israel. And bone needles suggest people were doing fiber work even earlier than that. You can't rush rope. It takes patience, repetition, and somewhere dry to sit. Bone needles, fish hooks, beads made from shells, stone tips bound onto wooden shafts with tree resin. All slow work. All exactly the kind of thing you do when the weather traps you inside with nothing but time. The rainy week was the workshop. The good weather was just when they used what they built. But something else happened in that firelight. Something bigger than tools. Researchers who studied modern hunter-gatherer groups, like the Juhuansi in the Kalahari, found something strange. During the day, conversation was almost entirely practical. Where's the food? Who's hunting where? Logistics. But at night, around the fire, the talk changed completely. That's when the stories started. Great hunts became legends. Animals became characters. People who died years ago came back to life, in words. Kids who'd never left camp learned what far-off places looked like just by listening. Now stretch that fireside night into a full week of rain. Trapped together, same fire, same darkness, nothing to do but talk and keep the flame alive and talk some more. That's the incubator. That's where the handprints on cave walls came from, where the paintings of bison and dancing half-human figures came from. The art at Chauvet Cave in France, some of the oldest, most advanced cave art ever found, sits in a space that shows signs of long-term occupation during cold, wet stretches. People weren't passing through. They were stuck there, and what they made is still being studied 36,000 years later. Rain didn't interrupt human culture. Rain might be the reason it exists. And then, one day, it stops. The ground is soaked, and every animal that moves across it leaves a perfect footprint. Tracking, which was almost impossible during the storm, suddenly becomes easy. Sand trackers in the Kalahari today still describe the ground right after rain as the clearest reading they ever get. Dried-up water holes are full again. Starved plants explode with new growth. Termites, a massive protein source across parts of Africa, swarm out in huge, predictable numbers. The week that nearly broke them turns into the best hunting and gathering stretch of the whole season. They knew that was coming. They counted on it. The storm wasn't just something to survive. It was the setup for the best days that followed. So next time it rains and you reach for a blanket and a phone, remember what that sound used to mean. It used to mean keep the fire alive or lose everything. Stay close or get eaten. Sit still or freeze. The tools, the art, the stories, the bonds that eventually became civilization, none of it happened on the easy days. It happened in the dark, in the wet, in the cold, with the fire barely holding on. Your ancestors made their biggest leap forward while they were cold, hungry, and stuck in a cave. And so did you. You just don't know it yet, because your rain already stopped. And here's a weird bonus fact. That smell you love right before it rains, it actually has a name, petrichor. It comes from oils that plants release into the soil during dry spells, plus a compound bacteria make called geosmin. And humans can detect geosmin in insanely small amounts, way smaller than most other smells we notice. Scientists think that's not an accident. Your ancestors needed to smell water coming from miles away long before they could see a single cloud. So that little rush you get from the smell of rain, it's basically a survival instinct you never turned off. If this changed how you think about something as ordinary as bad weather, hit subscribe. See you in the next video.